to Samvad. Samvad is a conversation with institutional leaders of MIT Art, Design and Technology University. This conversation is organized by MIT School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership to understand what skills are required to be a professional. Today we have with us Professor Krishnamurthy Thakur sir from International School of Broadcasting and Journalism. Welcome, sir. We would like to understand sir's insight on skills that students should have to be a professional.
Thank you, Pratibha. Indeed, I think it's time for a program like this should happen, because we as educational institutions do train students in academics and some of the practical aspects required to be a professional. Apart from these academic qualifications and also the practical skills, now a student requires something which is unique for a student to transition from being a student to a professional. Now, in a student environment, there is a different environment altogether, and when they get into a professional world, right from the entry point to being a professional requires a different mindset, different approach altogether. For example, getting entry into a professional world requires every corporate that takes a student into their system normally evaluates the skills. Now, these skills could be different for different industries, different environments, but when it comes to a proper skill enablement, a student has to transition in order to find, one, what is being tested, two, what are the skills that are required not only to get entry but to stay. Now, I think School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership has got its map right to take the students from where they are today to where they should be. Now, I think it's a very, very innovative, and I think the time has come for, like all the innovative practices that MIT Art, Design and Technology University does, I think this is one of the most innovative steps that MIT University, MIT ADT University has taken in order to introduce School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership.
Thank you, sir. So you yourself is a writer of a book which guides students for their professional development. So can you please share your views on what skills students require to be a professional? How do they change themselves from student to a professional?
I think becoming a professional is a transition by time, one. In order to make sure that this timeline is better cut, or it is reduced to the whole learning cycle doesn't have to go by experience or experimentation. Now, the School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership has put on certain modules, and these modules, I am happy to say that these modules are an extension of the book that I wrote for Accenture almost around 15 years back. It is an extension, and this book is a thought process of NASSCOM, Accenture, and many IT leaders that they taught at that point in time. And the programs that the School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership has, not only this content that I wrote, but it is also an extension of that content in also leading into professional abilities for a student to transition. So I think that's the most important part.
Right, sir. Rightly said. You have rightly said it, sir. So, what are the behavioral changes? What are the personality changes required on the part of students so that they are industry ready?
All right. Very important question. I think what happens is this is the actual most important part of the transition itself, because there are certain skills, whether it is aptitude or whether it is a verbal ability or whether it is a training in grammar or in quantitative techniques or something like that. These are skills that student could get by practice. Now, what is the most important part is the behavioral change. Now, behavioral change is, as a student, you are different. You are a carefree person. You have a different approach to life itself. Now, when you transition to being a professional, it is about responsibility. It's about taking ownership. It's about putting your ideas to work. It's also about making sure that you are punctual. There is a lot of assessment which is unknown that happens in the corporate world constantly. It is not written in any manuals. It is not written in HR manuals or in any of these things. How punctual are you? How responsible are you? How much of tasks that you take and complete? How process oriented are you? Now, these are things which may not have been written in any HR manuals or in any performance appraisal forms, but are something which your boss or a leader keeps observing all the time. Now, there is a mental record that keeps track of how this person transitions and how much of responsibility that he takes to take up the role of a professional that is required.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
So the behavioral skills are very, very important in order to inculcate very early, so that the corporate success or any professional life success happens, or it evolves over a period of time.
Right, sir. But a student from journalism might feel that I don't need competitive skills, so in that competitive aptitude skills. So, do they really require it? How? What would you tell such students?
It is not the question of whether journalism student or an engineering student or a pharmaceutical student or a law student needs these skills or not. I think everyone requires. It's not student alone, but it is way beyond student. Now, today, if you go to a CBSE school or if you go to a ICSE school, now they have evolved into what is known as life skills. Now, this is a curriculum that has been introduced by CBSE board. Now, life skills are the most important part of a personality development. Now, on one side, there are skills which can be practiced, built over a period of time. There are other skills which have to be inculcated, which have to be practiced, which have to be experimented, and you don't have to go through the learning curve of many, many years. If it is a capsule which is enabled by an institution like yours and incorporated into the syllabus and put into a structured format of, okay, learn, implement, practice. Now, if that is done, I think everyone needs this skill, and if they are able to inculcate, they will be a successful professional. Does not matter which stream of education that you pursue.
Thank you, sir. That was really insightful for our students. Now, one last message for students. What would you give them as message of this talk?
I think today's students are smart, and the most important quality of today's student that I see is their adaptability. What I see is they adapt to a certain required skill far better than what the earlier generations used to do. Now, this is a unique quality of this particular generation which we are going through. So, whether it is a behavioral skill or whether it is the adaptability of a new environment and all of that, I am sure this younger generation will adapt itself to a better professional life, and very quickly they are able to do it faster and all of that. And another thing is, this generation is far innovative. You know, they think innovatively. They have a deep inside, what I would say, energy in them as to innovate, as to develop that innovation into some product, some service, or something which is very innovative to the society. I think that's the most important part of this generation. And with these two aspects of this generation, I'm sure they would be far better than the earlier generation and generations in future.
Thank you very much, Professor Krishnamurthy Thakur, sir,
Thank you
for
very
this insightful power knowledge dialogue. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Pratibha. It was my pleasure, and it was my pleasure to interact with representative from School of Corporate Innovation and Leadership on this program called Samvad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.